Hello there, and thank you for staying with us. They say when it rains, it pours, and so that's what a lot of people might be thinking about, the things that have happened in the course of the week. I'm Neota Ebe, and welcome to Sunrise. It's a beautiful Saturday morning. Started out with slight rains to cool the atmosphere a little bit. It's been kind of like hot through the course of the week, but even in the midst of the small rains this morning, some parts of Lagos, not everywhere. Yes, indeed, not everywhere. There's still that atmosphere of tension. Everyone's wondering, what next? Where next? Okay, just take a few seconds and stop. And just thank your Creator that you are able to see this few seconds or this day to even begin to think about what next. But because no matter what happens, there's always a way around whatever situation you find yourself. So do not cast restraint to the winds. Do not take laws into your hands. Do not think that it's impossible to survive in the midst of all that's coming at you, because it is possible to survive. Yes, it is possible to survive. But be that as it may, life continues. So where do you think, what difference do you think you can make in the midst of all the challenges being thrown on you? What do you think you could do differently? Where do you think you can stand to start on this journey that looks as if, oof, the mountain's so big? But as they say, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with just one step after the other. You can make that difference. You can lead. But anyway, on today's show, we'll be looking at a couple of things, and I'm hoping that you can join the show and share your thoughts as well via Twitter handles and email that will be on the screen. I'm sure you're wondering where Alera is. Don't worry, she'll be here soon. Maybe the next edition she'll be here. But let's look at what we have lined up on the show today. Today we'll start out looking at the state of the polity. In the midst of all that's happened, what is the state of the polity? We'll be looking at that. Then a bit of education through the European Union scholarships. What about the European Union scholarships? We'll be discussing that. Then when this announcement came forward, a lot of people were very happy. The airports are reopened for international flights. Those who have been itching to get out of Nigeria, Nigerians and non-Nigerians alike. Then this one is very close to my heart. International Vulture Awareness Day 2020. What about the vulture? How important is the vulture to our existence and our environment? And of course, we'll end with the artist of the week, and he is a very remarkable he indeed, and one that I enjoy. Okay, do I let the cat out of the bag? Yeah, I enjoy listening to him. So you get to meet him. So make yourself comfortable. A cup of water, a cup of tea, whatever makes you feel comfortable. We will take a moment and we'll be back. Don't go away. Thank you for staying with us, and we'll start out with a look at the state of the polity. News that made the rounds in the course of the week had a lot of people having conversations as in what is going on. As they say, and I started out by using that phrase, when it rains, it pours. So about the increment of electricity tariffs, fuel price, pump price of fuel, of petrol. Many Nigerians are not happy, not just Nigerians, residents of this country, many are not happy with the situation of things, and they're looking, what is going on? Who is looking at us? Who is thinking about us? Well, we're going to look at the entire situation of things. Increments here and there, pandemic, how is it all tying in? And to help us understand all of this, we have here in Lagos, Femi Onokoran, who's a business development consultant. Thank you for joining us. And this side we have Donald Ibebike, a legal practitioner.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
Welcome, gentlemen. We'll be having Olutoyese Ibitoye joining us from our Abuja studio. Mr. Toyese. Mr. Ibitoye,
thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us as well. Let's start out with you, Mr. Ibitoye. When you heard the news of this week, all the news that came in, electricity, pump price of fuel, And then we're still in the midst of the pandemic. What was your take?
It just came to my mind that how will Nigerians cope with all this crisis that is going on? You know, it's a shrink on the income of the average Nigerian, and it just toughens the life. It just makes life as a Nigerian more difficult than it used to be. If you have to grapple with like 100% increase in electricity tariff, people are struggling with job losses, and then you are now talking about increase in pump price that will increase inflation and reduce domestic income or disposable income of people. It's really a difficult time. It's really a trying time for Nigerians. And of course, like you said, you know, one wonders whether the government of the nation really bothers about the welfare, you know, of the people.
Femi?
It's interesting times, you know, that's what I would like to say. We have had unprecedented events this year, 2020. And I think it's important, if we want to be objective in the analysis, to take into cognizance the challenges of the period, as well as to understand how good communication can aid in effective governance, right, and help people to appreciate what the problems really are. The various increases were expected, but the gripe that a lot of people have is the fact that they don't seem to feel a connectedness with the government, with the leadership. And that comes down to proper communication. Aside from having detailed analysis of what the situation is, having an objective view of what the problems are, it's also important to communicate to the people, with the people, so that you can carry them along, you know, despite the challenges that are at hand.
Okay, Ibebike, this, I mean, inadvertent what Femi has tried to say is that the government also has challenges. The challenge of providing the necessary infrastructure within the country. And so in all of that, it's okay for the people to be griping, but they should also understand that all that the government is trying to put together is for their own good.
Actually, as you pointed out, the government is supposed to be more effective in communication.
So it's a question of communication.
Communication to start with, not only communication. Number one, the timing. It appears that government is not sensitive to the plight of the masses. In as much as government may have some challenges and some other obligations to perform. But now is not the appropriate time to do that. Nigerians are suffering. Everybody is, you know, trying to make ends meet. And at the same time, government keeps increasing from VAT to petroleum tariff and also electricity tariff. So it's not giving Nigerians enough breathing space, you know, to think. So government has obligations. The masses also, they have their own obligations. So in other climes, other developed countries, government is trying to see how they can, you know, improve the welfare of the masses. But in our own case, government keeps taking. So at what stage will government, you know, think about the masses?
No, but hold on a second here. And maybe I should swing this back to Femi. When you talk about communication.
Okay.
When you talk about communication, this communication has been there. Okay. Yes, I mean, you've been told that at certain times there are going to be certain increases.
I agree.
In electricity tariff, even in the pump price of fuel. You're told that it's going to be a monthly thing based on the market forces.
Exactly.
So why are the both of you saying issues about there's no effective communication?
I think it's important to understand my own position. The multi-year tariff, MYTO, is not news. It's expected. The increase in fuel price, we asked for a removal of subsidy. So the natural inclination is that if crude oil prices, global prices increase, right, since we are not the one that's you know, producing it, it would also increase and the prices will adjust accordingly. So increase in prices are also, you know, welcome. And please, we should also not forget that we really want this subsidy removal, especially for the fuel. We requested for it, and for the economy, it is very good. It's very important that we remove anything that's just taking money away from, you know, from the common purse. The, what's it called? The other challenge, talk about VAT increases, and also there is a sense of insensitivity to the plights of the people. It's not a fact that they are insensitive to it, because we can also see that the government has made giant strides in spite of the challenges of, you know, COVID-19, the dropping oil prices, which has affected our revenue and, you know, forex receipts and all. The government has been making giant strides in putting infrastructure in place. And some of them are, we've seen them take off, we've seen them at different stages of development. Unfortunately, the gripe that the people have, that most people have, is that they don't feel a sense of being part of the project. So if you have progress, if you compare it to a home, even if you have the best ideas as the parent, as the father, if your kids are not carried along, the necessary sacrifices to make, which Nigerians are willing to make. If power is stable, and I can tell you that across many places in Lagos now, power is more stable than, people can boast of at the minimum of 12 hours, 18 hours of power, regular power supply. And people are willing to pay for it, right? So it's not the inconvenience, it's not the sacrifice that is the issue, but the, how do I put it, is the sense of insensitivity, because people feel that the government is not carrying them along. I'm not saying they've not been communicating, and I'm not saying that people are not aware of some of these things like the MYTU and the rest, but there is a need for effective communication. At a period in this country, during the military regime, there was a strong use of propaganda to influence identity and national orientation. We were bombarded constantly with information, with sound bites, with updates of stuff. And it shaped the mind of a lot of people, even though the country was not on the right track. It shaped the mind of a lot of people. Now, in this current dispensation, as with all throughout our democratic sojourn thus far, that kind of communication is needed. People need to know that the project is working. Now, it's sad that a lot of the bad news, negative news, seem to gain more press time and more visibility than the good things that are being done. And people, the cries of insensitivity, of we are suffering, is louder than the cries of we are making progress.
Okay,
that's where I feel that
let me say something.
No, before you do, let me take you to Ibitoye. We'll come back to you to say something. Ibitoye, the sense of insensitivity on the part of the government, Femi says, is there, but there are also giant strides that the nation is making. And those also need to be acknowledged, that the nation is making progress, instead of piping more on the negatives. There are a lot of positives. But when you started out, you had this picture of despair. So obviously you don't agree with Femi.
Thank you very much. I think Femi is right by saying there are some positives, but when it seems like the positives are outweighing the negatives, for the average Nigerian every day, he sees the cost, he sees the hardship that comes to him, and it looks like, who is his help? From where does his help come from? And that is the issue. So Nigerians are not really seeing the positives. Some positives are there in the area of infrastructure development, but it has not started trickling down to the life of the people every day. All we are bothered about is we've had a global recession, we were coming out of a recession, and of course, we are picking up bills, there are job losses, so it's not easy for the average Nigerian. So it's not so easy for Nigerians to start saying there are positives somewhere. It looks like there is an insensitivity, really, to the plight of the Nigerian, especially with all the increase and no government interventions coming as such. I think Nigerians shouldn't be blamed if it seems like the voice of the neglect is more than what is being done for them.
Okay, but Donald, do you think a cut in the cost of government will make any difference? Can anything be done in that direction?
In the direction of?
Cutting down the cost of government.
I think that's a major factor. I want to take you into some facts and what is, bringing up all these issues. Number one, you could see that some people have been, charged on estimated billing system. No prepaid meter to them, and government is increasing tariff. So that means more money for them. And most times, no payment.
All right, you know what? You will continue, pick it up from there, but also take into cognizance the fact that the president has given directive that estimated billing should stop. But no, you pick it up from there. I want you to take note of that. We'll go on a quick break. We'll come back. You will start off looking at this matter. Please join us again.
The Nigerian power sector has been through phases. Despite the investment and reforms, the sector has produced recurring dismal performance, with electricity consumers constantly growing in power supply. Recently, President Muhammadu Buhari ordered a mass metering program for consumers, and that has not even taken off. A new tariff regime is announced. This goes to maintain a 4 naira tariff for all customers consuming less than 50 kilowatts hour of energy per month. For most discos, there is a tariff freeze for those who don't enjoy up to 12 hours of power supply daily. But for the upper band, the tariff rose to as high as 56 naira from 40 naira. Raf, a trader who lives at Okera area of Lagos, says his neighborhood has been in constant battle with the electricity distribution company over estimated billing, and now with the new tariff, it sees a rip-off.
We had a consensus so that they should, give us meter, bill, card meter, or meter card. So we did that meeting among ourselves with the landlord, and everybody were arrived at the conclusion that if not card meter, no billing, we won't pay, even if they give us, because they keep on bringing crazy bills every now and then. So they find out that if they distribute this meter, they are the one to lose.
To get supply.
Ralph's story is not different from this self-employed Lagos resident who is also not metered.
It will be good for the tariff, to be revised to, to present realities. It will be good, that's on the one hand. Whereas on the other hand, we have a case where a lot of consumers have not been metered. And even with the present lower tariff, a lot of consumers cannot even afford the outrageous estimated bills. They haven't been following the capping order initially. Who's to say they are going to follow this capping order now, when NEC has not demonstrated initially that they are able to put these discos, in check?
The discos admit that the metering is tied to the tariff, but the capping method is expected to ensure that consumers are not cheated.
Metering investments are tied to tariffs. The investments will only happen if the tariffs are right. Now that the tariffs are right, the investments will come in. There is now a ceiling because those who are not being metered were being estimated. There is now a cap on estimated billings. There is a methodology to protect them. They may even come out better off than if they had meters.
The discourse insists that the current pricing system is not only unsustainable, but also not investor-friendly, and that necessitated this journey to a contract-based market, a move already condemned by some customers. Dari Ido, Channels Television News.
Thank you for staying with us. We'll continue the conversation. We've had some people sending some comments here. Festus Akimbewa says, Nigerians complained about rising electricity price and now rise in oil price. Truth is, government has no money left for subsidies. Nigeria is not a rich country. He says government has dealt with fuel scarcity, which should be applauded. Oil is an international commodity and the price is bound to go up and down. Then he says we have been warned to expect sharp rise in taxes. He's in the UK. Says they've been warned to expect sharp rise in taxes in the UK, where VAT is 20% to pay for COVID-19. That's from Festus Akimbewa. Well, Donald, you were talking about the matter of the metering and electricity tariffs. But I was going to say, remember the president had given a directive that estimated billing should end and everyone should be metered.
I'm aware of that, and I'm also aware that NEC, the regulatory body, has also issued similar, directive in the past. In fact, NEC has also directed all the distribution companies not to disconnect consumers without notice, but they hardly observe all these directives. So even the directive from the president can still go the same way. So the problem is the masses are feeling that what government is expected to do for them, government is not doing those things. So you see the disconnect. So the problem now is you are increasing tariff, whereas you've not, installed prepaid meter, which at least they'll be satisfied that they are paying what they are consuming. But now government will, all of a sudden, bring up tariff. So the masses are not happy based on this challenge. And the problem is, you see, the privatization itself of the power sector is a problem because there is no atom of competition in the system. A situation whereby all the distribution companies, they have a ring-fenced territory assigned to them, which means nobody is competing with them in all those areas. So the problem there is no competition. Unlike in UK, in the same house, in the same flat, you can use Eon, you can use British Gas, you can use Scottish Power in the same house. All you need just to go and buy token. If you're not comfortable with the services of British Gas, you go and buy token of Scottish Gas, if you're happy with their services, and slot it in, it will serve you. So by so doing, competition is in the market, in the retail market. So that will make the distributors to live up to expectation. But in Nigeria, there's nothing like competition. It's like a ring-fence arrangement, whereby this is my zone. So you see, after taking over, the same distribution companies started behaving like their predecessors. I mean, NEPA and Power Holding Company of Nigeria. So no incentive to invest in the system. If the transformer is not good, it's not working, the distribution company will not go and repay it. The residents will contribute money and buy another one, and the same distribution company will come and take over the transformer and continue to estimate, their billing. So these are the injustices that the masses are suffering. And all these things, they have been swallowing the cost, because they don't have anybody to complain to. So in the midst of this government...
Are you really, there's nobody to complain to?
Yes, because that's why, you see, if you look at, listen to what people are saying...
There's a public complaints commission.
No, most times, you see, they resign to their fate. Because even if they can speak up, if you accost them and ask them what their, feelings about the situation of things, they will say one or two things, but they resign to their fate.
And when you say there's no competition, there's also the Consumer Protection Council. Now the commission.
Yeah, federal competition. And
federal competition
no,
and
that is not
consumer protection.
the competition. You see, like, let me use the...
No, I'm just saying that there's an agency that's supposed to ensure that there is some level of competition in all of this.
Having a competition body is different from having a competitive market. The problem we have is we don't have a competitive market because like a co-distribution company or a distribution company, they have a territory assigned to them. So whether they perform optimally or not, they are entitled to their fees or to their tariff. But as I gave you, the example I gave before in the UK,
yes,
you in the same house you can use different power suppliers, in the same house. But it's not like that here. So the absence of competition is a problem. And that's why, the distribution companies are not living up to expectation. And that's why so many years after the privatization, Nigerians are not yet enjoying the benefits.
Okay, Femi, you're going to say something.
I feel that we should... You see, all the problems that we've highlighted as deviling us, the increase in tariffs, the increase in pump price and the rest, we need to be objective when we look at them. So the first one, for the power, what's it called? We need stable power. We need regular power, right? For that to be achieved, we need investment in the power distribution companies, the Gencos and the Discos. They need to know that they're going to make money if they put money into the businesses.
Yes.
For that, the rates that they are going to charge needs to be competitive. So the issue of competition may not be the problem. It's the issue of a fair play scenario.
But
let
me interrupt you here. Which should come first? The stable power or the tariff?
Okay, good. Now, that's like a chicken and egg scenario.
Exactly. Or would you say it should be the promise or the guarantee that they will get back their return on investment?
Let me put it this way. Government is meant to create an enabling environment, provide policies that will guide you, right? Any industry, any sector, that's the job of government. So what I would have loved to see is for NEC, for instance, on the matter of prepaid meters, why can't we have an arrangement that everybody is supplied prepaid meter? Now, if the cost of acquisition is the problem, because I know that in some areas in Lagos, people are buying it for themselves, why can't a loan plan be implemented that is attached to it, right? It's part of your bill, and you pay it off. And after paying it off, there can be a review if you've met up your what's it called, you're not in default, to give you some discounts over time that will also incentivize people to come. It's the nature of structures, underlying structures for some of these things that is the problem for people. Because it doesn't seem it seems like for most people that they're left on their own. Paying for prepaid meter, an asset that is not transferable, you can't take it away. It feels like cheating for the average Nigerian, because it is the property of the electrical companies. Yes. So why that problem? The scenario you painted in terms of competition can come into place if there's no meter, if there's no reference point for you to even charge and put it in. So if that is not first addressed and made a priority, we would always come back and circle around this drain.
Femi, I'll take you again back. Right now, at this point where we are, there is no stable power. It appears there is no environment that's enticing enough for the investors to bring in their investment. When I say environment, I'm talking on the side of the government. And then on the side of the consumers is that many are not willing to pay because they've not seen power for so long. So at the end of the day, I ask again, which should come first? The tariff. Telling me or telling the consumer that, look, you're going to be paying 100 naira per kilowatt. That's not what it is. You're telling them that. And then you're saying when you pay, you can now be assured that you get power.
Okay, so that creates a problem, clearly.
Because that looks like what's out there.
I feel the first thing, right? Because for any business, the investment, you must talk about returns assurance. So how am I sure that I'm going to get my money back? Is what most of the discos and what's it called talk about. How am I sure I'm going to get my money? If I invest this kind of money in this economy, how will I be sure? However, they've been given a license, and part of the provision of the license that they must provide this service. Now, it is based on the premise of providing this service that you can actually charge people. That's why the estimated billing is a misnomer. So I would say that if the enabling environment is there, the first thing would be for the discos and gencos to go out, get investment. With the tariff increase, fine. They said they can get access to proper investment because they were being properly charged now for usage. No problem. But get investment, make sure that you're giving us stable, regular power. Make sure that it is power that I use, that I am charged for. Over time, people would self-regulate their power usage, and there will be no need for estimated billing. But the power must first be available before you can talk about metering the power. So if the new tariff regime is implemented, right, and I'm sure they're going to go along with it almost immediately, it should come with service assurance. Provide stable and regular power. Then make sure that everyone is metered according to the President's directive. Then it is easier. The framework for metering people should be what the discussion should, that's what we should be talking about. Is that framework for metering? Okay, so people, are they going to pay for it over time? Are they going to pay for it in a short term? Are you going to provide it to them because it is your asset and your property? You can get a loan from a bank to make such provision within your area. Those are the things that we should be having the conversation about. But availability of power should be a no-brainer. And if we come also to the issue of increase in fuel price, we can't do much about it if we're honest with ourselves, unless we want to go back to the murky waters of subsidy, which, we know how that has led us over the years. Fuel prices, pump price is going to increase. It's going to fluctuate. It will go up, it will go down. There was a period, I think was it April or thereabout, that it dropped and then it went up again, and it's been going up since then. People are concerned because during this COVID period, economic activity is low. So you have fuel price, increase. You have food prices, increasing. You have, what's it called? NEPA increasing, transportation. So it seems like they are bearing so much within a constrained period of the COVID.
All right, let me bring in Ibitoye. Ibitoye, just react to this. Some of these increases are inevitable. However, I have not seen a deliberate or vigorous attempt by government to plug leakages and wastages by public officials. That's coming from Sam Was Born. Do you agree with him?
Yes, I agree totally with that. If we are asking the people to pay for services, and it seems like we are moving to a sort of capitalism completely, it is important that government, it is just good faith that government should, reduce cost of governance. And the cost of governance can be reduced by reducing the emoluments of our politicians, public service. Those are the areas where the citizen need to see that they are not alone in this. That's one way they can show, government can show the citizens that they are not alone in this, that they are also cutting costs because the nation is going through trying times. So it's important that government cost of governance as much as possible to make the people have a sense of belonging, that they are not insensitive to their plights.
Let me read this tweet to react to it, then we'll switch to something else real quick because our time's running out. Ayoade Adedeji says, Ikeja Electric hasn't supplied power to my area for days now because it is largely unmetered based on the government's bill capping on policy on unmetered environments. They would rather not give us power. Iloje Jeff Samuel says, what does the directive of the president mean to the common man? He said estimated bills should stop. Does it mean Nigerians should stop paying? Does it mean Nigerians should resist officials from disconnecting them? He's asking how should Nigerians react? And then Simon says, what was the initial agreement between the discos and NEC? Why is the impact on the masses? You are an energy lawyer and all of that. So at the end of the day, how should the people react to this?
That's why you see, protests here and there, because they feel alienated. They feel that government is not protecting their interests. It's obvious. No meter, you keep increasing fees. Contrary to what my friend said, the policy should be meter first. You don't put the cart before the horse. Provide meter to every household. Then after that, we can increase. So that if I'm consuming, I know that I'm consuming what I'm paying for what I'm consuming, not based on estimated billing. And you see some people paying like 10,000, 15,000 per month. But if you're on meter, you pay like maybe 5,000, I'll be okay. So that's the challenge. So the cry by Nigerians are justified. On a related note, because I want to say something on the issue of fuel. I've not said anything about that. I also feel that government, has been spending money on turnaround maintenance. I read that from 2015 to 2020, government has, the 4 refineries we have, they have incurred losses of over 500 billion naira. So government, the masses, they are reading all these news. They know all these facts. They know that government is not doing the right thing. So nobody's against the regulation. Myself, I'm not against the regulation, per se. But what I'm thinking is government should first privatize the refineries. If you privatize the refineries, the masses will say, look, government is doing something. There should be a policy. There should be a framework. If this framework is in place, the masses will see the determination in the government. The government will earn their confidence. By so doing, if government is, trying to earn money in order to provide services, then it is somehow justified. Okay. But in a situation whereby government is not doing the little ones, like the privatization, it will cost government money. And meanwhile, even the so-called deregulation, myself, I don't agree to that. There's nothing like deregulation is a technical increase in petroleum prices. Because Section 6 of the Petroleum Act, gives the Minister of Petroleum the power to fix prices. And that section has not been amended. It has not been repealed. It's still there. Likewise, the Petroleum Equalization Fund, it requires the government to make sure that petroleum products are sold at the same price across the country. So if you're talking about the deregulation, which deregulation entails that what fuel is sold in Lagos will be different from what is sold in Enugu. because of the transportation cost. But it's not like that. So you can't say that there's deregulation per se. To me, I think the government is just increased.
I think this is another matter we'll look at one of these days and we'll hopefully bring you back. Let's wind up in the next 1 minute each. Let's look at the third phase of the ease of restrictions on the COVID-19 protocols by the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19. So far, the curfew has been moved from 10 p.m. to 12 midnight to 4 a.m. The international flights are now, international airports are now open. Flights can come in from today, and indeed some are already landing. So in your thinking, the three gentlemen, would you say we're on course?
It's early days.
Early days.
A lot is in place. Sorry, I just want to quickly rush this. We need to understand as a people that there is no silver bullet. There are so many issues, baggages over time, that it's impossible for one administration or even 2 or 3 administrations to come in and make holistic changes as we expect across different sectors. It's going to take a while. And because it's going to take a while, we need to be realistic in our expectations of what we want. Not that when we start and it gets uncomfortable, then we say, no, this is not good enough. Let's go back to the old order of things. There's no silver bullet to this matter. These matters need concise thinking. The reduction, for instance, in government spending, it's painful to the people because they have out-of-pocket spending that comes to them. However, what is the quantum of that reduction, the impact on the scale of things that we're talking about?
Okay,
you need a legislative, you need a legislative amendment to make a number of changes that we talk about. Wait, those are things we should focus on.
Would the legislators make the amendment?
Yes.
Okay, so your closing thoughts on we're using the COVID thing to end.
I think we are in order with the easing of the lockdown, but I want to implore Nigerians to be very, very responsible and know that the COVID pandemic is not yet over. We need to adhere to the restrictions. We need to wash our hands and then, do the social distancing thing. It's very important. It's a personal responsibility phase, and we need to take it very seriously. Thank you.
Okay. Ibebike?
Yes, I think I'm in agreement with what he just said. That's the summary of the whole thing.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Olutoyeshe Ibitoye is a legal practitioner, joined us from our Abuja studio. Femi Onorekon, business development consultant, and Donald Ibebike, legal practitioner. Thank you both. And Toyeshe for sharing this day with us. Sunrise will be back in a moment. Please stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. The European Union has awarded scholarships to over 90 young Nigerians for various master's degree programs in universities across Europe under its Erasmus Mundus Joint Master Degree Program. This prestigious international study program is part of EU's flagship educational and training program, Erasmus+, which supports education, training, youth, and sport in Europe. Now we have to help us discuss this matter, the ambassador, Ketil Carlson, to tell us more about the scholarship program. Ambassador Ketil Carlson, head European Union delegation in Nigeria and to ECOWAS. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much. Good morning to everyone, and it's wonderful to be in your program.
Thank you indeed. It's good to have you here. Let's just start off immediately and look at this Erasmus Plus program. Tell us about it.
Yeah, well, first of all, let me say I've listened to your debate all morning, and I must say it's great to be the messenger of some really good news, because we are at times of crisis and uncertainty. And indeed, having a record number of Nigerian, young, brilliant, bright Nigerian students going to Europe is indeed a very, very positive piece of news. And I think it demonstrates as well that, as the European Union, we will not be deterred by the current crisis situation in our partnership with Nigeria and Africa in general. I think if anything, we will just redouble our efforts. And that's exactly what we have done with the Erasmus program, because in fact, we have doubled or more than doubled the number of students going to Europe compared to last year. And this is a very attractive program. This is a full package for students going to many different countries. The selected Nigerians will be going to some 23 different countries, some of them 2 or 3 different universities around Europe and in other neighboring countries as well. So this is a genuine opportunity for, learning firsthand academic excellence. But of course, it's also an opportunity to get to know new cultures and new languages as well. And I always hope and expect as well that these students will represent Nigeria, really making Nigeria proud in the universities where they're going, but then coming back as well to Nigeria afterwards, contributing to the society here, making their efforts to overcome some of the challenges that you have been discussing all morning. And then they become ambassadors, in effect, alongside myself, of the European Union and Nigeria too.
Okay, so in the last decade, for instance, over 120,000 students of Nigerian origin have studied in different countries in Europe. But then some will wonder, how did you go about selecting this 93 students that will be going to Europe?
So the big numbers that you're mentioning, of course, include as well the exchanges within Europe itself. But if you look at the position of Nigeria now, actually Nigeria is the country in Africa with most selected students. And I think it's number 6 worldwide, up there with countries like China and India and Pakistan, Mexico and Brazil. And the selection process is very transparent and merit-based. So this is all about the individual students, going online when the positions are announced and, applying directly to this scholarship program. And universities across Europe and the partnering countries that we are working with, including the UK, Turkey, Russia, and a number of other countries that are affiliated to the program, then there will be a selection process. So when we have so many Nigerians now entering, it's really primarily based on their own merit. And then, of course, the fact that we have done quite significant work to make everyone aware that this scholarship program exists. We did last week a farewell for the 93 students, but we did not do that sort of in a closed room. We invited as well the National Youth Corps members, and we had, literally thousands of young people joining from not only all over Nigeria, but I'm told even surrounding countries as well. And I think this will have a snowball effect so that more and more know about this opportunity. And it's wonderful because there's so much discussion about irregular migration, and it dominates a bit the agenda between Europe and Africa these days. And I think it's quite important to show to everyone that there are so many opportunities for regular migration as well. And that the partnership that we have in terms of exchanging students, culture, trading together, having political dialogue, all in one integrated approach, that's really what is dominating the partnership, the genuine partnership that we see between Nigeria and the European Union these days.
I was going to ask you about irregular migration, how much of impact this Erasmus Plus project will have on irregular migration. Can you measure the impact?
Well, it's very difficult to tell the exact attribution in terms of measurable impact, but I have no doubt that there is a positive impact when we demonstrate that looking for genuine, legitimate, regular ways of going to other countries, you can do this and really create a transformational change for yourselves and for yourself and your societies. Whereas we see the irregular migration comes with a very, very significant price tag. And we all know how dangerous it is to cross the desert, not to mention the Mediterranean, and the uncertainties, arriving as irregular migrants on the other side are just really significant. I've spoken with so many migrants from Nigeria myself, and I always get very emotional by the stories that they tell. So it's wonderful, really, that we have this opportunity to increase so significantly the number of Nigerian students going to Europe. Just like we need to recognize, the amazing contributions done by Nigerians all over the world, just like we have, of course, Europeans working in Nigeria. We have brilliant Nigerian doctors and nurses and lawyers and, workers in all sectors in Europe. And I think this is the kind of partnership that we need as we look ahead. And certainly my political leadership is given the top priority to Africa. We understand that Africa is a sister continent. We are neighbors. And of course, Nigeria being the biggest country in Africa, it's a vital, vital priority. And frankly, looking at the challenges in Nigeria that you have been discussing this morning as well, with the population growth underway, with some challenges around security around the country, catering for the opportunities for the youth, providing education, quality education for youth, that must be a crucial priority. And this is exactly what we see reflected in an increase of the number of Nigerians going to Europe on the scholarship program.
Okay, so earlier you talked about you mentioned 23 countries, but there was something you said about 2 or 3 universities, implying that one master's degree could come from 2 or 3 universities, like they're combined to award one master's degree to a student who might be doing a certain program there. But is that why it's called a mobile program? Are they going to be moving from one place to the other?
This is one of the truly amazing features of this program, actually, that you do not only go to one university in one country. Most of the students get the opportunity to visit different countries. And by that, expanding immensely the contacts, their network, but of course also the language skills, the understanding of the cultures where they're going. I mean, hand on my heart, I can say that I would not be sitting here today as an ambassador representing some 450 million people from Europe and Africa's biggest country, had I not done something similar far too many years ago. But that's another story altogether. So having this possibility is really quite incredible. Now, of course, there is a downside to the corona crisis, and I think we need to mention that as well, because of course, and I know you will be discussing flights next in the program, and of course, with only some of the flights operating, with the world opening up gradually, and some students will be able to go. Some students will have to start by doing online courses. Some students may go a little bit later. But between opting for not going ahead with this program at times of crisis or going ahead, I have to say that I'm really happy that we opted for the latter, going ahead with this program, because now is not a time to hold our cooperation with Nigeria. Now it's the time to really reinforce and redouble our cooperation with Nigeria, because it is needed more than ever before. And we see this, of course, with this program. We've also seen it with the work that the European Union has done together with the United Nations and other partners in providing very swift support for Nigeria since the outset of the corona crisis, making sure that every single one of the 36 states now have equipment and PPE material in their states coming from the European Union support. So I think it's a time of crisis where you get to see who your genuine friends and partners are. And, again, it's wonderful to be the messenger of good news this morning with so many Nigerian brilliant students going to study at European universities.
You've used the word young Nigerians, or phrase young Nigerians, a couple of times. Is it restricted? Is there an age limit to this scholarship?
Well, not as such. It's more related to where you are in your study program. It's a master's program. The Erasmus family has as well, the exchanges of researchers, lecturers. There are even university-to-university programs. So there's a quite significant opportunity for different ages and wherever you are in life to make use of this. And, converting these experiences into a truly life-changing experience by the end of the day. I think these kind of possibilities are up there, when comparing to when you're moving away from home the first time, or you're deciding what to study, or maybe even when you get married and you get your first child almost, because these are, crossroads on the road of life where this will take you in a new direction. And our hope is, of course, that all of these students will come back to Nigeria and say, okay, now it's time to give a bit back as well. We were blessed with having been selected for this program of excellence, but now we will give something back to our societies too. And I think that would have a snowball effect, and it would have a great impact not only on EU-Nigerian relations, but also on Nigeria as such.
Okay, so is there a clause in that scholarship that says the students must return to Nigeria when they are done with their program?
No, I mean, that's not how it works either. Some Nigerians will make networks and be able to work, get contracts in European businesses afterwards, I'm sure. Others will return back. So there's not a one-size-fits-all in that sense. It's all about increasing the level of academic knowledge. It's all about reaching out and creating partnership and platforms between European youth and youth from different parts of the world. And then, of course, making sure that we, join in the values around having proper education, the provision of those vital social services to our citizens, and certainly education and higher education is a cornerstone in this. So this is one of the truly valuable, features of the collaboration and partnership between Europe and Nigeria. Of course, we work at so many different areas, trade and politics, and engaging, throughout the country on so many different issues. But this, I always feel proud when we can send Nigerian students, because it's such a beautiful symbol of the collaboration that we have.
Okay, now let's look a bit at that areas of collaboration. You've mentioned business and social collaboration and how much the European Union is doing to help to assist Nigeria even within this pandemic period. But what else is the EU doing to support the Nigerian youth besides this scholarship?
Well, it depends on how many hours you have for me to answer that question, how the answer will be, because youth is a cross-cutting feature in everything that we do. So when we are supporting the democracy building of Nigeria, when we have been present as a observer since the return to democracy in 1999, then the participation of youth, the democratic processes, is a key feature. The Not Too Young to Run campaign, we supported the implementation very actively. When Yaga is now going to the Edo state elections in a few days, it's supported by the European Union. When we support the humanitarian assistance to the northeast of Nigeria or other parts of the country as well, of course, youth features very, very high. When we are engaging on trying to stop the pandemic within the pandemic that we see now on gender-based violence, I mean, these heinous situations of rape and violence against women and girls, and sometimes boys as well. This is something that is impacting youth very much, and it's an immense priority for us when we identify value chains, sectors where there's a true potential to move beyond oil, to diversify the economy. Then we look at how can we include youth in that as well. And the list goes on and on and on. So in everything that we do, youth is a genuine feature, because more than 60% of the population in Nigeria, as we all know, is youth. And if we do not address this particular matter directly, then we will miss the target altogether. So this has to be part of the priority, and it certainly is.
You know, this matter of the priorities for the European Union and the Nigerian population as a whole is one that a lot of people continue to discuss back and forth. We talked earlier about irregular migration and what the European Union is doing to help to manage that situation as well. You've also alluded to the fact that this Erasmus Plus program is also to help in sorting out that matter. But what next after all of this?
Well, I think, we are in it for the long haul. This is a vital partnership between Nigeria and Europe. I used to say that what is good for Nigeria is good for the European Union as well. If there is not a stable, prosperous Nigeria, it will impact all of Africa and it will impact Europe as well. So we are looking for that genuine partnership. Not only from the provision of development cooperation point of view, and I think this is really important. Maybe traditionally, the European Union has been viewed predominantly as a provider of development aid, and we continue to provide very, very significant development cooperation. I mentioned the 50 million euros just now being provided for the COVID-19 response, but it goes well beyond that. But I think having investments, having more private sector engagement, making sure that we connect European businesses with Nigerian businesses, having an exchange of technology as well. All of these matters, looking into how can we seek a greener, digitalized and climate-friendly future in all of our countries. These are some of the mega challenges that we are all facing, and finding solutions to that and opportunities to that, because there are massive, massive job possibilities in a country like Nigeria for having, for instance, a greener and digitalized agricultural sector in parallel to many other sectors in this country. Partnering on all of these issues will be a vital priority as we look ahead.
Ambassador Carlson, just before I let you go, you talked about all that the European Union is doing for the African continent and Nigeria as a whole. But what's the European Union benefiting in all of this?
Sorry, say again? I didn't hear that.
What's the European Union benefiting in this collaboration?
Well, I mean, as I said before, what is good for Nigeria is good for Europe as well. And if we have a prosperous and thriving and stable Africa and Nigeria as well, then we can do more business. We can trade with each other, and that's a win-win situation by the end of the day. We can have more regular migration streams instead of irregular migration streams. So fundamentally, investing in youth and opportunities is something that will benefit everyone in the short term, but as well in the medium to long term. So you will only see Africa increasing on the agenda everywhere. I'm sure about that. Africa is the continent of the future. And, those that are not engaging actively in Africa and in Nigeria in particular, I must say, will just be missing out. And I think everybody has understood that in Europe. And certainly the current von der Leyen Commission that we have in Europe has put Africa at the very, very top of the agenda.
All right, thank you so much, Ambassador Ketil Carlson, head of the European Union delegation to Nigeria and to the ECOWAS. Thank you for sharing your thoughts with us this morning.
Thank you, and have a beautiful morning.
And you too. All right, so as we're back in a moment, to stay with us. Welcome back. So after about 5 months of the COVID-19 induced shutdown of international flights, the federal government is finally set to reopen the flights today, September 5. An earlier date of 29th of August was announced before it was shifted to today. There have been all manner of reactions, some for good, some undecided as regards this reopening of the international wings of the airport. But let's look at the implications, the pros and the cons. And to help us, we have Tayo Ojiri, who's an aviation consultant. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. It's always a pleasure to be here.
Good. We're still expecting a tourism person and another aviation person. Hopefully they'll come in before this segment ends. So, Mr. Jury, so 29th of August didn't happen.
Yes.
But the 5th of September has happened.
We're leaving it.
I almost said it's likely to happen. It's happened.
Yes.
What's your take for one who's been in that field?
I'm still in that field, and what is happening, we're leaving it. It's a present reality, whereby we've opened the airports to international airports to international flights today. It's a great relief with excitement and euphoria.
Really?
Yes, 2 airports for starters, because 2 airports for starters, we have just Abuja and Lagos. We have restrictions of 1,280 passengers to be brought in daily. And then we just have huge compliance to COVID-19 protocols. Lots of implementations, lots of processes. But one should emphasize at this point that in the next 2-3 weeks, there are a lot of moving parts. There's lots of fluidity in the system. Lots of other countries that actually have border closures, travel restrictions. So that's affecting us. That's going to affect the flights, and that's going to affect the way the next 2-3 weeks pans out. So it's a work in progress. It's something we're excited at. And as we start today, and the full flight starts next on Monday, we actually see lots of international flights, not flights from the European Union, unfortunately, for now. The ambassador did mention that because there are lots of closures at these countries where they're restricting Nigerians to come in. So there's a reciprocity clause, which would not allowing EU
flights to
come in either. So that's actually been discussed.
But let me interrupt you. You said
Yes.
something about great relief. I am wondering why you use that phrase. What's the relief in opening the international flights?
The relief in opening international flights for demography and statistics is actually a driver to domestic flights. Domestic flights, don't forget, opened on June 8th. And with that, we've seen the slump in the number of passenger traffic. Our demography of passengers here are what you call origin and destination passengers. It's driven by business. Even though people have found other ways of doing business in the last 6 months, there's still need for face-to-face interaction, meeting family and friends, coming over here. So that's people have to travel for studies, people for health reasons, a lot of opportunities that are now opening up in the last 5 months that were not, that was closed down. So that's a good relief, and is actually going to open a semblance of normalcy for the next few weeks.
Okay, but in opening up the airports for international flights, yes, we talked about some restrictions. The number of passengers, for instance, we talked about 1,200 or thereabout passengers per day.
Yes, per day.
Brought in. So on the average, about 200 passengers per flight.
Yes.
Wouldn't that be detrimental to the businesses of the airlines? I mean, seeing that they have to carry less than the capacity of those planes.
It will be. And like you said initially, this is just a start. This is actually what everybody calls a partial reopening. 2 airports, restriction, so that we've seen with hindsight, with a lot of the evacuation flights, that those that were evacuated actually tested positive even after return. So we have to manage this. And again, it's been reiterated that aviation does not want to be that channel or vessel for spreading of COVID-19. That's the challenge and the perception people have about aviation, and we have to nip it in the bud and ensure that it's a safe channel, safe conduit for movement of business and services so that people get reassured and safe to travel again. So it has to be gradually phased over time. And yes, it's painful. It's actually going to lead to high ticket costs initially. Be realistic, because if you have a 250, 260-seater aircraft and you're only limited to 200 passengers, the airline has to make what you call yield, commercial viability on that flight. It makes the ticket price go up. So that's going to affect it initially, but this is not the new normal. And it's going to change eventually. Things are going to adjust, and we're going to see things pan out.
Okay, that matter of passengers again, do you think it would be wise for the operators of these flights to have medical personnel amongst those they are carrying the planes? I mean, if they have to, because I was having a conversation with someone yesterday and he talked about the possibility of the laboratories within the airplanes being conduits for transmission.
Yes.
So that's a possibility. But so do you think it would be wise to carry medical personnel within the plane?
There are two questions to that. The crew are well trained. The crew and people within the value chain are actually well trained and exposed to the reality and COVID-19 protocols, which actually make sure to prevention part of it. But once you ensure for the medical personnel to be on the plane, I think that would be too much cost to the airline. But once the protocols are actually done prior to boarding, that actually mitigates that process of spread and challenge and spread within the airplane. And talking about the washroom being a conduit, yes, there's a possibility, but we've identified that. And within the safe travel protocol being implemented or being initiated by ICAO, International Civil Aviation Organization, it did mention the sanitization process for the washrooms for long-haul flights. It did mention the sanitization process when the aircraft lands, so that when there's a turnaround, it's well disinfected. Prior, there's the electromagnetic process that cleans out the aircraft prior to the reboarding process. So that actually disinfects and sanitizes the aircraft before the next flight.
Okay, but a very simple question.
Yes.
How safe is it to board a plane at this point in time?
It's very safe. It's safe, and we have had simulations. We've had the processes that's been safe. Part of the safety process is actually, you actually have one or two airlines internationally actually offering insurance opportunities to passengers to ensure that that safety process is guaranteed. So it's safe with the sanitation process, with the protocols, but like viewers prior, the presenters prior said, it's a personal responsibility. Health declaration needs to be made prior to your travel. If you know you have a mitigating health issue or a personal health issue, you must not travel. Health declaration is key. Being able to comply with the protocols, with the use of masks, sanitizers, face masks, and even disinfectants throughout the process actually helps reduce that process.
Okay, we've been joined by Isaac Balami, who's an aviation consultant from our Abuja studio. Isaac, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
Real quick, so I'm sure we were hearing Taya when he was talking about how comfortable he is that the aviation sector is opening up, albeit partially, but gradually it will open up, so it'll be going. But this matter of some countries restricting Nigerians from coming in, and so the Reciprocity Act is already in place based on the restriction to certain airlines to come into Nigeria. How do you think that will work out for the industry?
Well, you see, I think Nigeria has now come of age, and I really, really appreciate the leadership of the Minister of Aviation, Senator Hadi Sirika, and our new DG, Captain Nuhu, who I believe knows what he's doing. I mean, gone are those days where you throw rubbish at us and you want us as a nation to just keep quiet, sit down and look. You don't want Nigerians to come into your country, even when the data is clear that even this COVID of a thing, you know, you are even more exposed than us. If you say we can't fly into your country, I see no reason why Nigerian government should also allow them to fly into our country. And I can assure you that based on what the Nigerian government has done, they are making serious effort to sort that out. The UK and other parts of the world has opened up, their embassies are open, they are giving out visas and everything. And some of these countries said Nigeria is on the ban list. And I think that is the way to go. The ones that have given us access to their country, we have given them access to our own country as well. And I stand with what the NCAA is doing.
Okay, so the global community is happy about this, the opening of the aviation sector in Nigeria, but they are also cautioning that certain precautions should still be in place. Also, take into cognizance the fact that some of these other countries that had opened up earlier are bringing back the restrictions again. Shouldn't we be looking at that to even open up our airports?
Well, you see, one good thing about the Nigerian airspace is, even before we started the domestic flight, there was a drill, right? And we have successfully opened up our local flight. And I think the NCAA, the Nigerian Airspace Management Authority, the Federal Airport Authority, led by the Aviation Ministry, have done very well. If you've traveled locally, you will appreciate the effort of the aviation industry. Another issue also is we have been doing an evacuation flight for a long time. This is not the first time. And let me give you this information. Most Nigerians might not even be aware that the protocol, the guideline itself, when there was a lockdown globally, Nigeria, even before the International Civil Aviation Organization or the European Union came up with the protocol, Nigeria was the first, the Nigerian NCAA was the first to come up with that guideline that will protect passengers and even operators. And I can assure you that most part of the world copied from Nigeria. We've done so many evacuation flights, including ourselves. We participated with one Warmos Air, even though we're trying to sort out some issues on that. But I can assure you that most of the evacuation flights that were done purely with the COVID-19 protocol, and there is no fear whatsoever. This is not something that is not as if this is the first time that aircraft will be coming into the country. Even as at today, as at yesterday, by today again, there are still evacuation flights, and it's the same protocol. The NCAA is on top of the matter. The fan is also ready. I think they have demonstrated that over and over. And I don't think there should be any fear. I mean, a lot of Nigerians or other part of the world, people are stranded, people need to reunite. Like Mr. Tayo this say, it is a personal responsibility. It's not just the government responsibility alone. As citizens, as a global citizen, anywhere you are in the world, it is your duty. You know yourself. If you have an underlying health conditions, you know what to do. Before you travel, you must do your test. And, while you are in the airport, you must observe. I mean, it's one thing for government to set the rules, the guideline. It is also another thing for us to follow. So we just need to comply. We just need to cooperate with the government and ensure that we are also safe, because in trying to keep yourself safe, you are keeping others safe, which is very, very important.
Okay, Taya, this matter of getting to the airport 3 hours before your flight. I laugh because before, well, let me not say I laugh. Before these restrictions came up, we've had issues with people getting to the airport on time. The big men and even the small men. But now you have to get there 3 hours before, because you have to go through all the protocols, the COVID-19 protocols, all the checks and all. Then you still have to go through immigration, then go through security, customs, before you enter the board. Do you think that is feasible? Using an airport like the Lagos airport, for instance.
In reality, international flights, you read your boarding ticket and your check-in process.
2 hours.
It is, well, 2 hours. But what we've seen with the simulation with the domestic, we started with 3 hours, which was where that number came from. But 2 weeks after that, we realized we was moved to 1 hour, 30 minutes. Again, this is an unprecedented issue. It's still a lot of fluidity in the system, lots of moving parts. We've not found a vaccine yet. So 3 hours for starters is safe. However, what is key and very pivotal for all of us is the fact that what COVID-19 has actually opened up for us is the use of online check-in being promoted. So once you check in online, you're reducing person-to-person contact at the airport. FAN is trying, the Federal Airport Authority of Nigeria is trying to implement the self-check-in process as well as the baggage drop-off process. That actually reduces your time at the airport and in contact with people. They also have the barrier plexiglass protection. All this actually helps with the check-in process. But with the 3 hours, it's the start for this new normal. Then after 3 weeks, we'll see how that pans out. And eventually, we'll see what works for everybody. But it's safe to be at the airport to get the process all done in good time rather than rushing to board the flights.
Isaac, earlier, Taya talked about the evacuation, and you also mentioned the evacuations that have already happened. And one of those that was evacuated, one of those returnees, a couple of days after he came back, it was discovered that he was COVID-19 positive. But that brings two questions here, but I'll ask them separately. First question is, with this new protocol of wearing your mask, I think that's one of the guidelines given, that you must wear your mask through the flight, and some of those flights might be 6 to 12 hours. Do you think that those passengers can bear that through that long-haul flight?
Well, I believe they can. You know, the aircraft is well pressurized, well ventilated. I mean, it's not just a tube where people just sit down. There are a lot of atmospheric activity in there. And the aircraft itself is designed to also take care of that. Most of those airlines also are also disinfecting their aircraft. You know, they spray some of those approved chemicals, or what do you, I mean, you know, on board, just to keep people safe. But the most important thing is that, you see, it's something that we have to live with. Nobody planned for this COVID. It has come, it is real. People are dying every day, people are sick, and we have to, if you spend 6 to 12 hours to keep yourself safe, why not? What will make anybody travel at this point in time must be very, very important. Most people have decided to just shut down until this whole drama is over. So if you are on board, I will recommend, if you know that you are not fit, you know, health-wise, to put on face masks for that number of hours, then you have to postpone your trip. But it's important that we adhere strictly, we obey the cabin crew on board, we put on our face masks from beginning to end of the flight. That is very, very important. I know it's tough for everybody, but it's something that we all have to cooperate with authorities and comply. It's for our own good. And that is just it.
What you're implying is that a lot of people should not travel, because there are some people that can't stand wearing that face mask for more than 30 minutes.
So why, if I cannot, but you see, and there are even different kind of face masks. You know, our company 7-Star produces face masks. And the point is that some of those face masks are not even approved. You know, they're not proper. The breathability, the comfort is very poor. So if you're traveling, you need to get approved, you know, standard face mask that you know has been approved by whether the Nigerian SON or by other authorities around the world. That is the best thing to do. But I tell you, even if you know you are negative, even if you know that the person next to you is actually negative, there's nothing wrong in complying. If you can't comply with wearing face masks, then I don't think you are actually supposed to travel. That is the basic truth.
This matter of preparedness of the airlines, for instance, you bring in someone who tested negative, because they're supposed to carry a negative result certificate before you board. So the person tested negative, and he comes into the country, like the story of that evacuee that came into the country, and then a couple of days later, having gone to mix with people, I mean, he's come back home, oh, you're back and all of that. Discovered that he's actually positive. How do you deal? What's the guarantee that this might not happen with this opening up for international flights? Considering also that the first case was brought into the country.
There are two solutions to that. First of all, yes, you did mention the COVID test prior to departure from origin. And then the first solution to that is there's a website now, it's been set up by NCDC for travelers inbound and outbound out of Nigeria. That website actually, it's on NCA's website, the website nca.gov.ng, where they're able to actually log into that website and give a declaration.
Okay, just hold it there.
Yes.
We'll take a moment, we'll come back and we'll pick up from the point where they are giving the declaration on the website. We'll look at the effectiveness of that. Do stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. We're looking at the opening up of the international side of flying in Nigeria. The international airports wings of the airport are open for international flights. Star, you were talking about a declaration that has to be done on a certain website. Is that enough? But let's look at, first of all, those coming in and going out have to go to that website and do the declaration.
Yes.
When? At the airport or before they...
prior to departure. So you actually get your COVID test, which is the PCR test, done prior to traveling.
At least 4 days.
Hours
Okay.
prior to your travel. Once you're tested negative on that, then you're eligible to fly. When you are negative to fly, you fly, and what your hypothesis, or you're saying that the person becomes actually positive upon arrival, there's a 7-day isolation period, which once on arrival in Nigeria, there's another test being required. So that helps that process. Then finally, there's a communal trace process. That helps us with the track and trace process. Like I said, this is real life. There's no perfect system, but what we've seen is the best international practice and best international procedures being put in place to ensure a safe, secured travel process.
Okay, let's look at that website and let's look at how it works. The website where travelers are supposed to go to declare, okay, that's the website there. So you say, when you go to this website, what are you supposed to do?
You fill in all your personal details. It's your health declaration prior to departure of your destination.
Okay, and then?
It uploads, it prints out your...
Certain things that you have to fill?
Yes.
Okay, and then when you fill it, that goes to the NTA?
It goes it goes to
NCDC. So they have that before you come in.
That's correct.
And before you travel.
Yes.
And it will be with them days before you come.
Exactly.
So why is it with them? So that they run a profile on you before you come into the country?
That's correct. You have it's good for your...
What if I refuse to give consent for all of this?
That's where the responsibility part comes in, and being able to track and trace communal trace of traveling passengers is a key point to actually being able to reduce the spread of COVID-19. Because when we have the contact tracing, we're able to mitigate that spread, make sure that patient is treated so that the spread is reduced.
Okay, Isaac, this matter of going to the portal, international travel portal, to fill out your data, and then when you come in, there's still the bit of some kind of 7-day restriction. You're kept in a place where another test is done on you. What if I am one of those passengers that, listen, I'm not giving consent for any of this? What happens?
To be honest with you, I helped to get landing permit from Lagos to Canada, US through Wamos Air. I think one of the few evacuations done directly from Lagos to US, Canada. And I tell you, there were over 50 passengers that could not fly into Canada and US because they delayed in providing those information. As a matter of fact, the flight was delayed from Lagos to Canada, US for 24 hours because of this same information Ogatayo is talking about. So basically, is something that is a responsibility on the part of the passenger, because you cannot expose yourself and expose others. If you're careless, if you're not serious, I told you, during that flight, the people in charge for contacting the passengers did everything possible. Some passengers were not responding. Some were not even on the phone. On the day of the flight, they weren't allowed to board. Simple. They have their US citizenship or Canadian permanent residency and what have you, but they were not allowed to fly into Canada. We had 6 hours delays on ground because of that. So I can tell you that it's a serious matter. If you're coming into Nigeria and you don't want to go to NCDC and fill up this information, I don't think you will have issues. You will have issues with the carrier. And you can see that the Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority, the Nigerian government in general, is threatening. If any international airline violate all those protocols, you don't follow those protocols, there are sanctions. So the best thing is, if you're flying, like I said, these are tough times for everybody globally, but if you must travel, you must comply. It's very, very important, because we don't want you to land and then after some days you have issues. You see, if there are issues, people should be able to trace you. There are situations at the early stage of this evacuation flight where people came in and nobody could actually locate them. So these things is a must-do, and I think we should please comply and obey the rules.
Okay, we've been joined by, I'm coming back, Syed. Let's look at a tourism consultant and see what he has to say. If Tobo Awana joins us via telephone, this whole opening up of the aviation sector, airlines with all manner of restrictions, how is it affecting the tourism industry?
Okay, good morning, and thank you for having me. Of course, it really has a devastating effect on the tourism industry in Nigeria. However, the important thing is life, and that's why I'm quite excited about the way we're going about this. Over the past few weeks, there's been a lot of engagement with the travel trade, to keep us up to speed about what government is doing and how we can jointly surmount all of these challenges. I mean, on Thursday, for example, there was a meeting held by the NCA and other agencies with the travel trade and airlines that lasted up to about 11 p.m. So whilst we know that this has very serious effects on our businesses, a lot of businesses in the tourism industry have folded up. I mean, and I'm sure that by the time things open up, we'll see a lot more who, will not be able to open up. But then we know that the most important thing is staying alive, and protecting our people from the dangerous virus.
Still staying with you, Festus sent in a message here. He says, now that international flights have resumed, FG must not hesitate to bring national control measures, even at short notice, if there's risk to Nigerians. I know he's talking to the federal government, but what about the states where these airports are located? Should there be any risk whatsoever? Do you think there's that, how do I put it now, the impetus to ensure that immediate lockdowns are put in place to stop whatever that might be, just in case there's a threat?
Sorry, I didn't get that clearly. Are you talking about the states now?
Including the states and federal government. Should there be a threat to Nigeria, do you think there's that promptness, there'll be that promptness to put back those restrictions as quickly as possible?
Well, I'm sure that with all of the structure that's been, all of the framework that's been put in place by the federal government, I'm sure that there will be it will be possible to lock up if there's a threat once again. And that's why for many of us, we're quite optimistic because we see that a lot of work is being done and a lot of proactive measures are being taken. We hope that, there may be, it could be better because, of course, when we look at what some other countries around us are doing, like Ghana, for example, who are having tests at the airports, and so it allows tourists to come in. Because, of course, one of the major things, that one of the major consequences of having this 7-day self-isolation procedure is that a lot of people will not choose to travel. For example, the Heathrow Airport is down by 88%. Just because of the self-isolation measures in the UK. So yes, those are the considerations. However, just like I said earlier on, the most important thing is life. So even though we want to open up, we want to also err on the side of caution.
Okay, Tayo, I'll bring this question to you. How quickly do you think restrictions can be put back, lockdowns can be implemented again? Should there be any threat whatsoever?
That's looking like it's a crystal ball. But actually, before I get to that question, there's a punitive charge for non-compliance to any airline that brings a COVID-19
$3,500
exactly
per
passenger. So if you choose not to adhere to those restrictions, one, the airline will not pick you, and two, there's that charge if the airline chooses to pick you for one reason or the other. So there's that charge. So it's going to negate it. And that actually brings to your, piggybacks to your question, we see a reduced rate of spread. But in the instance, hypothetically, that happens, it's not just the airport. The airport is working along with Lagos State. I know the fund management met with Lagos State governor during the week on the startup process, as well as the Ministry of Health, Port Health, the immigration, all the PTF as well. So there is that process for if for the challenge instance, the simulation instance that we have a second wave or infection arise. There's a process to actually close down the airports and reduce the travel. And that's why we're actually having the numbers of travel and number of airports just 2 for the meantime.
Okay. So at the end of the day, we're looking at things that are looking real good. So gentlemen, if you had a word of advice for all those that are going to travel, those immediate travel and later on, what would it be? Let me start with you, Ifitobo. What would you say to those who are seeking to travel and tourists who are wanting to come into Nigeria?
So my advice would be to follow all of the laid down instructions and guidelines, because this is for the most important thing, which is life. To make sure that they get tested. I mean, all of the information is out there, and if they're using, you're speaking to whether travel agents or the airlines, those informations are clearly spelled out. Where to go to have those tests, the website to go to get registered, and the procedures to take. So it's important that they follow this, because it could mean their own lives. So, and I don't think there's anything more important, whether it's business or leisure, than personal life. So once they follow all of these, I'm sure that over time we'll be able to overcome this pandemic.
Okay. Isaac, let me put this one to you. Those who had bought tickets to travel earlier but could not, some of their tickets were shifted to August. For instance, I know a couple that was supposed to travel in March. They bought one of those early tickets that are not too expensive, but that means they can't get a refund. And then the airline told them they are losing their tickets. But then the borders were shut down, and now one of those airlines has been allowed into Nigeria. But the couple can't travel again. So what should those kind of people do?
Well, that is quite so unfair. That is not right. I don't know what class of ticket they bought. Sometimes we just buy some of those promo tickets and we don't look at the conditions attached. I don't know what must have happened. I have not been privileged to go through the conditions attached to the ticket that they bought, but it's rather unfortunate. But I know that anybody who is any responsible airline anywhere in the world, you cannot just keep your passengers stranded. People work so hard. I participated in an evacuation flight that currently about 50 people are going to be refunded. You have to refund people back their money, or you reschedule them. You cannot just take people's money and say you will not give them a seat when you start flying, or you refund them their money. That is very, very important. It's rather sad, but the question you asked before now, all I can just say is that Nigerians are patient people, and I pray that we should be more patient. You see, every staff in the airport have been trained by across the aviation agencies, even immigration, customs, the NDLA, all the agencies that are in the airport. The air hostess, the ground support staff, the baggage handlers, everybody has gone through COVID training. We have all complied. So whenever anybody is speaking to you in the airport, please be patient. Be patient, follow the rules, and I think we'll all be happy at the end of the day. I pray that God give us the grace to fight this together, because the government can't do it alone. It is also our responsibility as passengers.
Taya.
Well, it's just for us to follow the global aviation restart protocols, so we can actually be safe and ensure that we comply.
All right. I want to thank you, gentlemen, for sharing today with us, and hoping that those willing to travel have been listening and would follow the due protocols. Taya Oju is an aviation consultant who joined us in Lagos. Thank you. Isaac Balami, an aviation consultant, joined us from our studio in Abuja. And we had Ifitobo Awana, who's a tourism consultant, who couldn't make it. I understand he was held in traffic, but he joined via telephone. Thank you, gentlemen. I will wish you well, even as the aviation sector opens up. Thank you again. Sunrise will be back in a moment. To stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. Now, I know a lot of people don't like, a lot that do not understand, do not like to see or hear about the vulture. But today is the International Vulture Awareness Day. For those who understand issues about the environment, and even if you don't, please listen carefully today. It's a day to raise awareness about the importance of the vultures and to promote the work carried out by conservationists around the world to protect and conserve these birds. Now, vultures are an ecologically vital group of birds that face a range of threats in many areas that they occur. Populations of many species are under threat, and some species are facing extinction. They are vitally important to these ecosystems. Cleaning up carcasses and other garbage would help to stop the spread of diseases to domestic and wild animals and to humans. So, but are they really important? I mean, growing up, we see vultures everywhere. We actually chase them if you have the courage to, but then others cringe. But let's look at all of this, and to help us understand this, we have Joseph Onoja, who's the Technical Director of Nigeria Conservation Foundation. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
We're also expecting the Archpope for the Environment, Mr. Desmond Majakodumi. Oh, yeah, he's here already. Hello, Mr. Majakodumi. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
We just elevated you to Archpope.
Only Christian kingdom. That's all I am. A chief gardener of the Fasiplag.
Thank God for what you do. Okay, so let me start with you, because I understand you're actually in the field. You're supposed to be taking some people on a tour and to see the vultures. So tell us why we should even pay attention to these birds.
Absolutely. Great and good question. Well, all the more reason to pay attention now, because COVID has come, COVID is here to stay, and COVID shut the world down. COVID is a zoonotic pandemic disease, okay? That means it comes from the animals, from the wildlife. And guess what? The vultures are one of the few creatures in the wild that can actually control these pandemic diseases. Why? Because they have the capacity to eat carrion. They have the capacity to eat rotten flesh because their digestive system is so effective. So an animal dies in the forest, the animal dies in the bush, before it goes rotten, the vultures come and eat them all up. However, if there's no vultures, and the way we're going, there soon won't be any, because a lot of them are being extinct.
Oh, well, we'll have to get back to Mr. Majakodumi, but let's come back to Lawrence here. Joseph. So he says, the capacity of the vulture is enormous, and they can actually help to control and eradicate this pandemic, so to speak. But do you agree?
Absolutely. I think let's break it down.
Is there a medical, I know you're an environmentalist, but is there a medical proof to this?
Yes. In fact, a medical doctor that is working in India just recently published something in a journal called IBIS. It's a journal of the British Ornithologists Union that just came out last month, showing that there is empirical evidence to the fact that vultures help to protect the environment, especially when it comes to cleaning up of carcasses. You see, the decay process, when there's a carcass, the decay process introduced with it, because you have a lot, the decomposing process introduces bacterium spores and so on. So if vultures are not there to clean it up, and because of that decaying process, there are a lot of pathogens. So if vultures are not there to clean it up, when it decays, it is left there to the environment, and before you know it, it is transferred into the human population. So for vultures to be there, they are able to clean it up, and as he rightly pointed out, they have a very low pH in their gut. So by taking that in, they are able to neutralize whatever organism that may be, microorganisms that may infect us, and by they processing it, when it comes out of their stool, it is already almost processed. So you have a high laden of pathogens when the carcass is just there versus when they've processed it to very low pathogen load. So that is what happens in that process. Now, when you eliminate vultures from that cycle, which is very important, You have, and vultures are what we call obligate scavengers. That is, they must scavenge. And we have the facultative scavengers or the opportunistic scavengers. You have dogs and you have rats. And guess what? Dogs and rats interface very closely with humans. They come to our houses. In fact, sometimes when I open the bonnet of my car, I see the pool of rats all over the place. So they enter places that ordinarily we interface with them as well. And they don't have the capacity like vultures do to be able to process these things. So what happens is that they bring it just the way it is, unprocessed, and dump it on us. And then we get exposed to it, and we are not immune to such, and we can be exposed to such pandemic. Well, thank God for to this time, we've not had serious pandemic, not until this COVID-19. We have cholera, can be a devastating one. Tuberculosis, botulism, and so on can have this effect. In fact, enteritis, that is the swelling of the lips and so on, can cause that. There are viruses that can cause that as well, which can infect us. But the thing is that because vultures are there to clean it up, we don't get infected. So sometimes we take some of these things for granted.
Okay. Mr. Majikotomi, this species of vultures that we have, on the African continent, for instance, many of them are either killed for diabolical means, for their healing powers, they say, or for different reasons. But where you are right now, I know that you have some vultures that are growing there in the wild. What can we do to help?
Very good question. I think if we really want to get serious about this matter, we need to actually go into our scriptures. We need to go into the Word of God. And no matter what the religion is, whether it's Christianity, whether it's Islam, whether it's Hinduism, whether it's Buddhism, we need to study the scriptures because all of those scriptures are very consistent of one particular element, and that is we human beings have been designated as caretakers of the creation. Caretakers of the creation, which, by the way, the Creator says is very good. In fact, in the Christian scripture, it says it's very good several times. And at the end of his creation, he says it's very good. And, you know, if we do genuinely love our Creator, then surely we should listen to his word, which says we should care for his very good creation. And of course, there's a reason why. There's a reason why, because creatures like the vulture, as Professor Onoja has so clearly pointed out, are so important. They are part of the critical web of life. At the Lufasi Park, where I am right now, and we're expecting the Commissioner of Health to come and plant a tree in commemoration of Vulture Day and to remind people to look after the wildlife like the vultures. We have a critically endangered species right here. It's called the hooded vulture, one of the few places where you will still find it in Lagos. And they're wonderful carrion eaters. So we need to just get that into our consciousness, that if we really do love our God, we have to care for his creation. And that means looking after the creatures of creation, especially creatures like the vulture, which serve no value to us if we want to use it for medicine. Vulture doesn't give any medicine. The medicine that vulture gives is to take care of the carrion. It's not very good to eat as well, and I feel it's a problem.
Okay, but Mr. Matikotomi, let's talk about the myth of the vulture, the myth around the vulture. Some are afraid the vulture is the vulture brings in witches. Some say the vulture myth is good for healing. Some say vulture helps to, all manner of myth around the vulture. How do we debunk this thing?
Some say, but the reality is, and I can understand why these superstitions come about, because the vulture is associated with death, and that's because of the role it plays. It identifies dead flesh, and it comes and cleans up the flesh. So people with superstitious minds will actually be thinking, this vulture is something to do with, no, it's not negative, it's extremely positive. And, you know, scientific tests have been done. There's not much value in the flesh of the vulture. It's not really very good for eating anyway. They say it's very, very hard. If you want to eat bird, chicken is far better. to eat. So we should just, get rid of all those false notions. The vulture is an incredible, wonderful aspect of creation that we need to protect. Otherwise, you see, the reality is that we've slapped Mama Nature. We slapped her and kept on slapping her, and we were warned that zoonotic pandemics would come if we continued wrecking wildlife, if we continued wrecking their ecosystems. And guess what? COVID came, and Mama Nature just snapped her fingers, shut down the world. And there's worse to come than COVID if we don't now get ourselves on the right path and start living harmoniously with nature and protecting the creatures of nature and just using what we need for our survival and not being so foolish as to think that the vulture is good medicine. The only good medicine the vulture is to protect us from more pandemics, which will come. You know, if you take a hammer and knock your head with it, then you shouldn't complain if you have a headache. And that's exactly what we're doing to ourselves. But worse still, on a final note, not only are we knocking our heads with the hammer, we're knocking our children's heads, and that's not fair at all.
Okay. Mr. Nodja, living with nature, he says. So a lot of people do not still understand this idea of conservative living, protecting the environment, living as though your life, which actually depends on the environment.
Yeah.
So what have we been doing that we need to do differently in terms of the conservationist?
Yeah, well, you see, we continue to try to connect people's lives with the environment. And that is why days like this, International Vulture Awareness Day, is created. So that when people see the connection between their livelihood, especially their health, and the vultures, then they are more prone to protect it. So we are changing the narrative so that they will be able to see that interlink between it. Because it's been shown that a single vulture in its lifetime does an ecosystem service of $11,200. In fact, much more in India because of their lifestyle. Now, if you are able to just, nature is providing $11,200 worth of service to you, which is saving the government.
One vulture.
Yeah, one vulture. Yeah, which is saving the government tons of millions in healthcare. You can imagine if we shouldn't go ahead in protecting them. So by the time we do that and bring the monetary terms to it, and that's why we're doing this ecosystem valuation, so that people will see that we're not just talking about just protecting the environment. And I continue to say, now when we talk about environmental protection, we're not really talking about environmental protection. We're actually talking about human protection through protecting the environment. Because if we continue to destroy the environment will adjust. And then it will adjust, but at repercussions to humans.
But let me interrupt you and bring in this other bit. Why celebrate, in quote, celebrate the vulture? There are other birds. There are the hawks. There are all manner of birds. So why are we so focused on, why don't we have the International Day for the canary? Why don't we have an International Day for the hawks, an International Day for the eagle, an International Day for all the birds?
Yes, that's because these birds you just mentioned, most of them are beautiful. Most of them are majestic. When you talk about the eagles, many countries have eagles in their coat of arms. Nigeria has one in our coat of arms. So the awareness about eagle being a very strong bird and so on is already there. But the myth surrounding vultures, as you asked the other time, is because people don't know much about it. They think that the baldness of the vulture is due to one thing or the other. But that's what nature has done to vulture because of their lifestyle. Because they have to stick their neck into carcasses. And if they have feathers there, it will not be firm. It will not be smooth. So that has to be bare so that they can easily do their work effectively, the work that nature has done to them. So that's why we need to create awareness about them. So that people will know that the myths surrounding vultures are not really true. Because it's just the same thing like owls. Because owls happen at night, and because of their biology, they can twist their heads almost 270 degrees, and people think that, they are evil birds, they are things like that. So what we don't know, lack of knowledge, is what drives the myth surrounding some of these things. But if we understand what they actually do, then we will love them because we know that they are there to save us. So that is why we try to create this awareness about this bird. We don't need canary. Canary sings very well. People cage them. Nobody cages vulture for pleasure.
You can't cage
no,
it.
you can't cage it for pleasure. So what needs more awareness is those birds that that people are running away from. So they will know that these birds are not evil. These birds are not harmful to us.
I know we're talking about the vultures, but you just mentioned the owl. Tell us about the owl a little bit.
The owl are fantastic birds that what we call biological control. Owls in the night can eat up to 2 to 10 rats every night, and they swallow them whole. So if you want to test this thing, where owl roosts, where they spend the night, when you go where they spend the night, you will see, you can count the number of rat skeleton. Because what they do is that they swallow it whole, and their system in there digests the flesh, and then they regurgitate the bones whole. So you can actually go literally and count how many rats they have eaten. You can imagine what will happen if owls are not there to check the population of the rats. You see, nature has put things in balance such that everything is a prey to another thing that checks the balance. So if you take off owls from the environment, the rats that are there, because we sleep at night, we don't know the number of rats that run around. So we think that, owls are just there. But nature that knows what it has put in place, knows what balance that's created. When the rats come, that is when the owls are active to check their population. Because if they are not there, then the rats will blossom, and then they will cause infections to us. So eventually, everything kind of revolves around man. That is why nature is put in place to protect and to cater for man. And we are the ones who are not even taking care of this nature. We continue to even destroy it at our own detriment, actually.
Mr. Majikotomi, are you still there?
Yeah, right here with you.
Okay. Okay, so let's look at this thing about the conservationists and what I asked the question, and Dr. Noja did not really touch it. The question was, what are the conservationists what have they been doing? But more like, what should they be doing differently? I mean, to push forward this message that the environment and indeed the vultures need to be protected.
That's a very, very important question. In fact, that question is actually one of the most important questions that can be asked right now. And why do I say this? Because just recently, the Secretary General of the United Nations made a statement, a global statement, it went all over the world, that the point of no return is no longer in the horizon. But the point of no return is hurtling towards us. The implications of statements are extremely sobering, especially coming from that particular platform. United Nations, conservative leaders, very highly intellectual. They have access to all the information, access to all the scientists all over the world, all the meteorological organizations, all the different conservation organizations. They know what they're talking about, and they don't make global statements lightly.
Please just hold your thoughts. Just hold on a moment. We'll just go on a quick break. We'll come back so you pick it up from that point of the UN Secretary General's statement and the implications of that to the rest of the world. We're back in a moment. Please stay with us. Dude, thank you for staying with us. Festus Akingbewa says, vultures don't deserve the hate they get because we owe our survival partly to this creature. Mr. Majikotomi, you were saying something about the UN Secretary General, his statement recently, and the implications on the world.
Absolutely, absolutely. The Secretary General says, that the point of no return is hurtling towards us. That's an extremely sobering statement. He knows what he's talking about. Basically, he's just reiterating what the scientists have said for a couple of decades now, but more recently, in the last 10 years, they told us that we shall unleash deadly zoonotic pandemics. HIV came along, Ebola came along, and now COVID is here. They're right on track. They're right on track. So we need to really, really sober up. And I'm very hopeful for us as humans generally, because, hey, we all love our children, and if we really understand that our children's very future not to mention our own, is at risk, at serious risk. We shall change our ways. But in Nigeria particularly, I'm encouraged because Nigeria is a God-believing, God-loving country. And all we need to do is just look into our scripture and realize. I mean, in the Bible, there's even a scripture where Jesus was talking to his disciples and he said, if, okay, the operative word is if you love me, you will do my works, and my Father will love you, and we shall come and abide with you. So the operative word there is if. So if you don't love him, don't expect the Father to come and abide with you. So the reality is that, we need to wake to our role, stop this arrogance, and start behaving far more harmoniously with nature, and start, loving nature. We are the stewards of creation. And hey, guess what? Nature is the ultimate mama. And if you slap your mama, she's going to slap you back. She's giving us a little tap with COVID. If we keep on hitting her, she's going to hit us back with her fist. God forbid we shall allow this to happen. We must stop this nonsense. Stop wrecking the ecosystems. We don't need to tear down all the forests because of firewood in a country that can provide all kinds of facilities for cooking. We don't need to be destroying all the wildlife. We don't need them. We don't need them. We can do that.
Okay, so Basil, Mr. Majikodumi is out at the Lufasi Park. He's actually looking at vultures and expecting some government officials to come in and plant trees to mark the International Vulture Awareness Day 2020. But we're here in the studio. Dr. Nadia, you said something earlier about vultures provide services worth $11,200 in their lifetime.
Yeah.
Now, there are some human beings that may not provide services worth $1,000 in their lifetime. But yes, what he was saying about the statement by the UN Secretary General, the inevitable is
here,
hurtling towards us.
Yeah.
The question is, how prepared are we?
We are not prepared, sadly.
Are we even thinking in that direction?
We are not even aware where we are, because if we are, then we will change some of our lifestyle. Because it's not just, because whatever we do has a knock-on effect on other aspects of the environment. Because the vultures are not just declining on their own. There are activities that lead to their decline. For instance, you can tie deforestation to the decline of vultures because they need a home to be able to thrive, and their homes are being destroyed. Luckily, places like Lufasi Park, where they have the eki wood, the eki trees there, they are able to roost, and then they will find that place conducive.
Wait, hold on. Eki trees. So the vultures live on the eki trees?
Yeah, they live on the eki trees. The last time we were there, 3 weeks ago, we counted about 24, 25 vultures, which is quite encouraging, hooded vultures. And mind you, hooded vultures moved, within 5 years, moved from least concern to critically endangered within 5 years. That's to show you that almost 90 to 95% of their population were wiped down within that period. And that was because of increased deforestation and increased use of other chemicals. For instance, I was talking about deforestation, and then what also drives their population is when we poison carcasses and they feed on it. Even if they are not killed by biomodification of those chemicals in their system, it weakens the quality of their eggs, such that when they lay their eggs, the shell are not as strong as they should be, and they cannot withstand the pressure, and they break. So there will be failed attempt at breeding. That also leads to their loss. When they lose their breeding season, I mean, that also, because it's going to take them months to be able to do that, and they produce a chick. Yes, a chick. A chick can, maybe in a year or so, can produce just a chick. So you can see what all the knock-on effects that has. That is why their population is being driven down. And apart from that, the additional pressure of poisoning them, and people to use them for meat. Though the meat issue from our survey and from our interactions, it has gone down. Now what is really being used for is belief-based use, where people use them for juju, because we have gone to markets in the southwest, even in the north, we've gone to all these markets. We've seen what people are using them for. And these things, this trade is being passed from generation to generation. So you can see all of these things coming together. That is what is really driving the population of these vultures down. So we need to reverse that thing. And we need to be aware of it. But I don't see us reversing that thing. That is to show that we are not even aware of it. And that's why a day like this is important, to continue to create that awareness. And as I mentioned earlier, what we can do is to try to connect our lives to these vultures. As you mentioned, 11,200, and that's because we don't even have carcasses littering around. For India, they do much more because of their lifestyle of not eating beef. So if an animal dies, it is left out in the open. If there are no vultures, you can imagine what will happen. So this is, so they do much more. And something with this is that the efficiency with which they clean up the environment is so, and they do it so quietly and so nicely that you don't know that anything is happening. Imagine if you have to deploy your technological know-how to be able to make that happen. Imagine the cost in terms of money. Imagine the cost in terms of resources, in terms of the noise. Imagine the machine that will be doing all of those cleaning. Imagine the noise it will produce. So and all of these things put together, the inconvenience and everything. By the time you monetize everything, you're talking something much more expensive, which may not be as effective as what nature has put in place.
But at the end of the day, I asked a question earlier, what can we do differently? I noticed that a lot of people have taken to walking, maybe for health reasons, thanks to the pandemic. People have taken to walking. A few people have thought about recycling. A few people have thought about planting trees. But still, the efforts don't look like they are bearing much fruit. But it's better to have a little than to have nothing at all. With this awareness that's been created for the vultures, what else can be done? What should we be doing now?
Okay, so apart from the awareness that's been created, we need actions. We need people who can, we need ambassadors, because our various activities and our various inactions or actions have positive or negative effects. But we want things that will have positive effect. For instance, someone who is listening to me now, who is aware of it, if he is a patronizer of the vulture pass, will not do that, because if there's no demand, then there won't be need for vultures to be hunted. So we need to change our lifestyle in that people who are patronizing. And if one tells one, then everybody becomes aware of the importance of vultures. So that is why we, first of all, get ambassadors. And secondly, our laws need to also buy. We'll continue to talk about our laws. We need that law, those laws need to be enforced. So, and that is why, and if we have people who are interested in it, they will not even go and violate the law, not talk about the law being enforced. So
But the laws are somewhat obsolete.
Well, we just
the laws on animal protection.
Yeah, but we have the Endangered Species Act.
Okay.
Yeah, we have the Endangered Species.
The vulture is in that list.
Yes.
And
Yeah,
what's the fine for?
The vulture is in schedule. They don't know what the fine is.
Exactly.
Actually, it's quite ridiculous. It's just like 1,000 naira.
So how would if I'm caught killing a vulture, I just pay 1,000 naira.
Yes, and that is why we're trying to bring it to the level of consciousness. You see, sometimes we look at things, if number one, if it doesn't bring naira and kobo directly on our table, and it doesn't bring food directly to us, we feel that it's not important. And the thing about the environment is that people need to be aware that the environment is the number one unit of production. So without the environment, whatever we are doing is kind of useless. So until we bring the environment from that list, because usually even the budget usually is after everything has been budgeted for, then the environment will be given the remnant. We need to bring it back to where it's supposed to be, then other things will follow. When you talk about the SDGs and where it's all the pillars, the 3 pillars of people, the planet, and prosperity. First of all, it was turned on the other way around. You think that when people prosper, then the environment, then the planet will be healthy. But we come to realize that that's wrong. That's the wrong model. It is the planet first. It is when the environment is conducive, then the economy will be better, and then people's lifestyle will improve, not the other way around. And as long as we continue to turn the model on its head, then we'll continue to get it wrong. So we need to go back to that model of making the environment conducive, first of all. Then people will live better lives, because the economy would have prospered properly. But whatever advances that we have made, if the environment is not conducive, it will just go through. And the COVID-19 situation is a very simple example. Whatever advances we have made, the environment coughed and has brought us to our knees. And that is, and we'll continue to have, because the historians have traced the level of environmental degradation and the rise of zoonotic diseases, and they see that there is a positive correlation with the level of degradation and the level of rise of infectious diseases.
Okay.
So we are expected to see more.
Okay. Mr. Majikodumi, your closing statement. Oh, okay. Well, we're glad that we had him. But let's wind down here with Dr. Noja.
Okay.
What would you have to say as we wind down?
What I have to say is we need to watch what we do as humans. Yeah, today is the International Vulture Awareness Day, but we are talking about the environment generally. We need to be more environmentally conscious.
Okay. Mr. Majikodumi, real quick, your closing statement.
Yeah, my closing statement is let us definitely be far more environmentally conscious, and let us show that we love our Creator, who says his creation is very good, or we shall suffer tremendous consequences.
Thank you very much. Dr. Noja, thank you so much for coming in. And Mr. Majikodumi, thank you. We had Mr. Majikodumi, CEO of Lufasi Park, who was an environmental activist. We called him an Achpo earlier, right?
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Majikodumi, and Dr. Joseph Noja, Technical Director, Nigeria Conservation Foundation. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
Sunrise will be back for the home stretch. Do stay with us. Dari Art Alade has been away from singing for 5 years. 5 years of hiatus. He comes up with this thing he calls Jah Guide Me. Born to a legendary Nigerian musical family, jazz pioneer Art Alade, he's honed his musical skills at an early age, singing with several choirs, including the National Troupe of Nigeria Choir and then the Cathedral Choir. Dari has also worked as a successful radio and TV personality, appearing as a coach, judge, and host on several TV shows, including Project Fame, West Africa, Nigerian Idol, and The Voice. He's also a seasoned master of ceremonies, voiceover artist, and philanthropist. Now, that one I like, the philanthropist part. He's the co-founder of Live Sport 360, a creative agency responsible for some of the most disruptive concerts in Nigeria. I think one of those concerts, he was actually brought in by a helicopter. Dari Atalade. Good to have you.
I don't know about helicopter, but it was like 200 and something feet.
Yeah, but
it was a crane.
Whatever, you were descending from nowhere.
See, I now spoiled the.
You just, sweet. It was sweet. You were enjoying it. You're laughing.
How are you, my brother?
I'm good. It's good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Well done. So, how have you done? How have you been?
Not bad at all. You know, just working hard. You know, it's been tough. You know, the economy and the you know, everything over the last few years. Working, you know, on, like you just mentioned, our Live Sport 360, you know, doing concerts either for ourselves or
for others.
Files, for example, you know, we did Files Experience a couple of times.
Okay.
We did Love Like a Movie. And we also do a lot of advertising, digital tech, experiential marketing. You know,
I actually thought the 5 years you took here was to spend time with the family.
No, the most time we've all spent, I'm sure you yourself, is this lockdown period where you know you can't go, although as a member of the press, you know,
we're here every day.
in and out, in and out, in and out. So, but a lot of families probably have seen a lot more of their parents, you know, during this period than any other time. So I'm not excluded, you know, less traveling, no shows, you know, no need to go out there to do certain things. Yes.
So how has it been for one who's born into this legendary musical family? Has it been for you? Do you sometimes feel like, I'm not filling these shoes well. I need to stretch further.
I think the good thing, you know, from the beginning, I said, look, I'm not going to even bother. See these shoes, you know, it does them every now and then. It does keep them. Every now and then you can pick them up, see whether they're still looking good, dust them again, and put them down. I've never tried to fill my father's shoes. Never, ever. I can't. Because I just know there's certain things, an enigma such as he was, just leave it. You know, the best you can do is just pass on the baton, you know, just continue from wherever he...
You have siblings, right?
I do.
Any of them in this?
None whatsoever. The only good thing, though, is, I mean, Air for Music, they like to enjoy, whether it's Afrobeat or jazz, you know, they have their collection, and you can't tell them anything about music. They know what they like, you know. That's as far as it goes for them. I'm the only one that
dabbled into
professionally-
it. Not dabbled, you actually went into
I
it.
dabbled, you know. We all start by dabbling, you know. Either, oh, I'm liking this, oh, let me try this talent, you know, oh, I'm skilled in this, oh, people are liking this, okay, let me continue more of this. Yeah, that's
So
how we
what's
all-
this one you're trying to do? I mean, you're known as an R&B singer, but over
Used to
time...
be. When you say Daria Atalade, that's my government name.
Used to be.
The artist name is Dare.
Okay.
Dare. Try, let me hear you.
Dare.
Now, what's it called the Dare? Without, you know, we started with Dare.
Okay.
You people, my name, just put Y there and
Dare.
makes it easier, yeah.
Okay, so Dare.
Dare.
So now Dare Atalade is Dare. But used to be used to be known for R&B.
So R&B.
But now it's as though you're shifting, or are you trying something different?
It's a new genre for me. You know, I'm always reinventing, trying to recalibrate, regalvanize, you know, redo the whole thing. So I've come up with something called Afro and B. It's a fusion of everything that I've done in the past and what's to come. So right now, the body of work that's coming, which Jah Guide Me is just a tip of the iceberg, is Afro and B. So you can be guaranteed it's fresh sounds. You know?
I'm already feeling it. But that's good. I don't know if the producers could play that Jah Guide Me. I mean, I heard it the first time and I was like,
is that...
What's this? Then in the middle of it, there's this fella sound that comes out like,
yeah,
ooh.
and you don't know that's coming.
You didn't. How did you manage that?
It's part of the inspiration, you know. A lot of the inspiration for me and a lot of people in my generation, you know, has been Fela Kuti, you know, for example, alongside many greats, you know. For me personally, people like Manu Dibango from Congo.
Yeah.
I happened to meet him at least once or twice in my lifetime, of course, before he passed on. Last time he actually came to Lagos, you know, for Afrima, and I reminded him of how close he was to my dad.
Yeah.
And, oh, you should have seen the glow in his face, you know, and all that. So, of course, inspired by my dad, Fela Kuti, Manu Dibango, Hugh Masakela, you know, Miriam Makeba, people like that. So you can hear that infusion, you know. On Jah Guide Me, you can hear Fela, you know, you know, as a small, you know, tribute, you know, to that aspect.
What inspired that?
Man, Jah Guide Me really is during lockdown, you know, and the inspiration, I must say, is the reality that a lot of the average Nigerian, you know, our average brother and sister living on less than $1 a day. You know, COVID came in, made things really
hazy and tight.
Yeah, and you add that to an already existing reality, you know, human frailty, economic conditions, you know, the hardship that this is the second recession that we're going into, right? You know, in the last 4 or 5 years, thereabouts. Our regular guys, what are we thinking about them? You know, do we see things from their perspective? Is the government listening? Are they, you know? That's what this song, you know, represents. And I'm happy that people can, you know, they've resonated, you know, a lot over the last few weeks that the song has been out. A lot of good feedback, you know, that, man, is like, you know, this period, you know, it gets us a bit. And we've all lost someone or known someone who's lost someone. We read the news, you know, we see everything going on around, not just in Nigeria, but globally. So it's tough.
So we see your dexterity evident in this. Yeah. There's a bit of reggae there. There's Afro, there's R&B, there's jazz, there's all of it infused into this one song that and the wordings, the lyrics are quite deep. But how far do you want to take that?
What do you mean? How far? Like as far as possible. Right now, this song in particular is doing so well. It's the #1 song played on the radio, you know, in the country. I don't think there's been anything close for me. You know, maybe not The Girl, Pray For Me, achieved similar feat. But for a song that I just brought out, and in comparison to all the other songs that are, great songs.
Indeed,
out
it
there
appears
right
every
now.
other thing you've done has gone into the shadows.
Oblivion, this just blew it out of the water. So this, around Africa as well, a lot of love from East Africa, a lot of love, around, the rest of the continent, the UK, the US. So it's been really, so far. So as far as possible, to answer your question.
You say you're this Afro and B.
Afro and B, not just this song, but
the next body of work you're working on. But in all of this, is any of your children looking towards...
You'd see them on social media. My handles, we post stuff every now and then. They record those things themselves. They edit them themselves. My daughter is probably more musical. She likes the attention. She loves, she's the life of the party, wherever she's at, especially when it comes to dancing and just expressing herself. Music, I can hear her voice, there's something there, so maybe we'll groom and see. My son, of course, is the football loving, video gaming, so I just, my wife and I, we just want to allow them to be themselves, encourage support, just as we also had that support.
Let me ask you this question, because it's a bit tough for a lot of people who are in this field to manage family, relationship with the wife, relationship with the children. How have you been able to manage your wife and your relationship and your work? How has it been for you?
I think it's the grace of God, taking in my stride. I'm surrounded by great people, not just my immediate family, but, team that help make things easier, work flow better.
But your wife is part of your team.
Exactly, so she wears many hats. Like I said, starting with, the immediate, my wife, the kids, they're always supportive. If I'm shooting, they're there. If I'm planning this or I want to use them as a sounding board, what do you guys think of this? They're there. So they help shape that trajectory, and also everybody else, along management, and all the other technical partners and team members over the years. So.
But have you ever had this fear about, my wife in the entertainment industry with me, how would it affect our marriage? Have you ever had that?
From the beginning, we've always worked together. Even before she, forayed into entertainment because of me, I also forayed into design and, business because of her. So we just blended and gelled right from the get-go. So I think just fortunate, lucky that things have, panned out the way it has. I know how tough, based on the question you're asking, we see the reality of how certain couples or
so
certain
when
partners,
when you see these things happening out there, what does it elicit from you?
I mean, for each couple, it's their business. I'm not nosy or anything. You just have to find what works for you. If you and your partner don't get along work-wise, it's fine. You don't have to work together. But what you must do together is ensure that you get along. I mean, then what's the point? So if you don't see yourself as best friends or be able to agree on certain things, then, just be on your own. That's the whole point of, marriage. So, it's getting along. So if you're able to work together, it's a plus. If you're able to make money together, spend money together, plan together.
I like this, make money together and then spend it together.
It's part of life. It's part of life.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah. Indeed. So, okay, now there's this other bit about the art world where a lot of artists believe that you have to go solo to make it. Are you one of those?
When you say solo, like independent,
do things on your own.
I've been solo. We are all solo in this Nigeria. Your own local government, you provide your own electricity, you provide your own food and all that. So,
but you still have collaborations.
Oh, absolutely. In terms of, I always work with a lot of people, despite being independent, so from producers to songwriters, the entire ecosystem we're in touch with,
So you don't write all your songs?
Oh, no, not 100%, no. That's the honest truth is it takes, the industry is so large, it's so huge that a lot of people underplay, the importance of all the little elements, your road manager, your personal manager, your PA. There's a career in every little, factor or element
publicist.
of... Yeah.
Okay, we'll talk more about this. I'll come back from this break. Just stay with us. Thank you. Dare is still in the house. No, I've learned now. No more Dare Art Alade. That's his family man. But the artist in the studio is Dare. So Dare, yeah, that song, Jah Guide Me. We'll still talk about that because for me, it's. I told you I've been playing. It's like it's in like.
the rain.
No, I don't.
It's on replay.
I don't do about. But it's been like that. But then, the song before this, Pray For Me.
Yeah.
I mean, we just watched a bit of the video, but what were you thinking when you did that song?
Pray For Me was on the album Naked, you know.
Yeah.
Naked, of course, was a bit of a double entendre, you know, where I came out with that picture where it looked like I wasn't wearing anything, but it was just metaphoric, you know, because naked
you got a lot of flack for that.
Well, let people talk, you know. Sometimes you got to, you know, give them a PR spin to it. But the truth of the matter and the bottom line was, it was about bearing my, you know, telling stories that show that bared emotion, you know. And Pray For Me is inspired by the story of P Square, believe it or not. You know, you might know, you might not know, how they left Jos to come to Lagos, you know. So when my producer, Oscar Himanaka, you know, who produced the song, started talking about that story, like, look, this is perfect inspiration. Let's put it into a song. And that's how that inspiration became a song that people can relate to. You know, if you go to YouTube and watch this video, look at the comments from years ago, even to last week or, you know, today, people are still watching and commenting. You hear stories like, oh, you know, this is like exactly my life. I left home. I struggled to go abroad. Within a year or two, things got better. By the time I reached back home, either by phone or physically,
I had lost someone.
You know, I had lost someone, either my mom, my dad, you know, really like literal. You know, some say, okay, it's just out of, you know, maybe just their situation, you know, hardship coming through. And that's what the music, when you're able to tell those kind of stories, when you hear that feedback, that gladdens my heart.
Evergreen songs. Yes. Okay, pray for me. So pray for me.
Pray for me too. Pray for all of us, you know.
Okay, so let's go back to this new one now, Jah Guide Me. The video, very colorful.
The colors of Africa.
Yeah. Pray For Me, you didn't shoot Pray For Me in Nigeria.
It was a mix. There was parts in Pray For Me that's Nigeria. Like when I was hailing the
cab.
The pickup.
Yeah.
I mean, I got picked up by one Benklemesh vehicle, which I had to
Where
get
was
into.
that?
I didn't have option. That's down the road, Ekpe, down. We wanted that lots of greenery. You know, we wanted that interstate vibe. And we got that there. Then, of course, with the choir, we shot that in South Africa. That mountaintop was also in South Africa, you know. So we just mixed it up.
But the Jah Guide Me.
100% Lagos.
Lagos.
100%.
No, Dari, you're not
From
serious.
the opening shots where you see that, you know, I'm sure, you know, people will notice it.
Can we just go back to that opening shot?
Sure,
and see that
go back to the opening. That aerial view that starts the music video at the very top. Yep. At the back. Go back. Yep. Go back at the beginning. Okay, I think there's still. So you get that overview, like city shot. That's Lagos. Everywhere, you know, the sandy, white sand beach vibe. Lagos, the water view, Lagos, everything.
Why did you? Because there was a time when we couldn't do this kind of thing, or we thought that we couldn't do this kind of things here in Nigeria.
Not that we couldn't do it.
As I said, we thought.
We did at the time, but of course, quality wasn't commiserating with, for some people, what they wanted to achieve. For myself, what I would have loved to achieve back in the day, we couldn't achieve here, you know, not just hardware-wise, but that ability to pick out the best scenery, you know, and locations and all that. We've improved drastically, you know, over the years. Quality equipment, you know, have you know, more in the country now. Expertise as well, human capital, you know, great, you know, getting better. We can always improve. There's room for that, you know. So with this music video, for example, we showcase what's possible, you know, and it is possible, you know, especially with us at Livesport 360. Anything that, any magic you want to
create it.
We can create it.
You know, I really would love to continue this conversation. We've talked about everything, any and everything. But what next for Dari?
What next? This is just the first single, you know, of upcoming body of work. That's going to drop maybe in a month or two, thereabouts, but it is around the corner, you know, so maybe another song or two would drop before we bring out the body of work. On this body of work, I have collaborations with Tenny. I worked with Pato Ranking as well, you know, and a few other surprises. So remixes also coming. So for now, I'm focused on the music. You know, yes, Live Spot X Festival we had in December. We had Cardi B. You know, we've done Kim Kardashian, Kelly Rowland, Ciara, and co over the years. There'll still be more of that to come. You know, for now, when they open outside fully and we know how to live with this, you know, coronavirus, then things will be a bit easier. For now, I'm focusing on the music, working my way back, you know, gently, and yeah, practicing my band, you know, performing already, you know, so.
So I'm going to sign out, or we're going to sign out now in a few seconds, and then we'll give you like 10 seconds to just serenade the viewers.
Sure. We'll do like a live guide.
Yeah. We'll be speaking with Dare At Alade, a multi-award winning Afro and B singer, a.k.a. Dare. Thank you for coming on today. And that's our show for today. I want to thank you for letting us be a part of your morning. It's been great, and I want to thank you all that sent in comments. Belumi Advait, Belumi Folarin says, wickedness toward nature and superstitious views of vultures can be remedied through this kind of public awareness. Thank you very much, Belumi. Thank you, Festus. Thank you, Ashiwaju, and every other person that sent in a comment or two. We do appreciate you, but please go out there, be the best you can be. Love your neighbor as yourself. Stay safe. Wear your mask. Wash your hands. And just be good. Love the environment. See you again next week. Bye-bye. Dare.
I must fulfill my destiny. In all my gettings, I go get money. I see the blessings coming out, so let the blood cover me. Let it cover me. Jah protect me from my enemies. Majaki, I want to cover me, oh. I want to see another day. So them fit know, them fit know. Them fit know I serve a living God. Those situations get tougher and harder. I believe in the one and only Son. Momari Batishe. Jah guide me. This is Dare. Peace and love to all of you. God's plan. Remember,